Hi, welcome back to another gadget report. And let's talk gadgets, of course. And this week, I'm going to talk about something that, well, if you travel, you definitely heard about and you definitely spoke about, which is the luggage debacle. Um, Airlines impose limits, of course, understandable, and most of us complain about them. So let's talk luggage and let's talk gadgets. So let's talk luggage. And if, as I said, if you travel or if you are a frequent flyer, you certainly have this in mind, and you certainly know that um, luggage is something that is always in your mind. It is true that, and I strongly believe when I travel, I don't really like to pack my entire house in a suitcase and take everything. I honestly don't like to do that, but I know, and especially in the olden days, where or when aviation and flying used to be this glamorous experience, this luxurious experience, people might have traveled with lots of suitcases and all that. And sometimes you see that stereotyping in those caricatures of someone with 1,000 suitcases pushing a airport trolley and all that. I don't think that happens anymore. Um, and for a lot of reasons, and one of them is because airlines don't allow it. Or if you want to do it, you obviously have to pay for it, and it's not cheap. So, um, obviously, this has reasons, and reports have said, and people have claimed that um, the luggage allowance limit has been falling, or has fallen in the past 10 years. Well, um, although I don't have specific data that can confirm that, um, as a traveler myself, and 10 years ago, uh, 12 years ago, I was sort of a frequent flyer because, as you know, before I moved to Australia, I was in a long distance relationship with my husband, back then my boyfriend, and I would be traveling to Australia frequently to be with him, etc. So I have done this trip for a few times, and of course I started getting acquainted with the rules, and obviously luggage allowance was one of them. And I was coming most of the times. I was coming for 3 months, which was the maximum that the tourist visa allowed me to be in Australia back then. Um, and I had obviously to bring clothes that would allow me to stay in Australia for 3 months, but I also needed to comply with the regulations of the airline I was flying with. As I mentioned, was British Airways, which is still one of my favorite airlines. And and back then I remember the maximum was 30 kilos. So I think some airlines back then would allow 32, but it was a little bit far-fetched back then. I did a little research, and I found that most airlines these days allow between 25 26 kilos per passenger on the checked-in luggage, and obviously smaller amount in the carry-on luggage. Now, the controversy is, why do they do it? Is it just because? Is it a cutting costs? Is it, what is it? Well, this I think is a no-brainer. I think it's something that you can easily see, that if airlines are cutting this is just the reason behind it is money, money, money. Of course it is. Because um, it's fuel efficiency. The heavier the aircraft is, the more fuel is going to consume to keep the aircraft in the air, to keep the aircraft flying, etc., etc. So if an aircraft is heavy, it's going to need more fuel. So airlines want to optimize the flights with the maximum passengers, of course. So they cannot cut on that weight, the passengers, but they can optimize this with the cargo that they transport. And that cargo is, amongst other things, you know that commercial aircraft also transport few other things like mail and sometimes other goods that are also transported in a commercial flight. So they also have that to accommodate, and it's paid, and it's expensive. It's very expensive if you want to you know bring something that it's transported by plane. Any goods, they are expensive. And I remember I worked in a company that was an importer of Portuguese products, and they used to bring cheese, and due to the short life shelf of the product, they would bring the pallet of the cheese in by plane, and it was extremely expensive to bring that pallet. So it is possible, but it's also very expensive and only used in extreme cases when it's really, really important that the goods can travel as fast as possible. So with a certain urgency, which in the case of the cheese was, because as you know, is a perishable good and is something that does not have a very long shelf life. So that's why the company at the time was doing it. So it is possible they have cargo, and that cargo obviously has to be accounted for, but the luggage of the passengers is included in the ticket, unless they obviously have more than that, and then they have to pay, and that will be expensive. So that is where they can cut. And if they cut in order to have the plane a little more lighter, of course they're going to save on fuel, because if the plane is lighter, it will consume less fuel, and that it's money. Also, if obviously, and this is another thing, if fuel consumption is kept to a minimum, then the profits are kept to a maximum. Easy to see as well. Another reason that may also be put forward, and I think it's kind of questionable, is that obviously for the environmental reasons, because again, less fuel, less emissions, yada yada yada. Well, yes, but that can be questionable. However, in a more broader aspect, yes, we can even think on that front as well. So why do they lower the baggage? It's basically an economics exercise. Is an accounting exercise. They just want to optimize their operations and get as much profit as they can from that flight, and for that they have to get the costs of running that flight to a minimum and the revenue they get from that flight to a maximum. reducing the allowance of luggage that passengers are allowed to carry on that particular flight will obviously help them to do that. This is obviously my personal analysis, this is obviously my personal opinion, but it's obviously something that it's easy to understand, and I think you will agree with me. That's all for today. I hope you really enjoy this gadget report about luggage and about airlines and luggage allowance. Um, my advice every time that you go on a flight, in case you are unsure, check on your ticket. It will certainly state there your luggage allowance. Um, and it's easy to do, and obviously um, I know we all like to go on holidays or whatever and have everything with us, but seriously, I don't think we need just that huge amount of things. We can just be frugal, and that will honestly be easier for us. I remember on my first flight I came with and because airlines back then you could bring you know your carry-on, you could bring a lot of stuff, and I remember I brought a huge bag with CDs, with my CD, the CD player, um, and all of that stuff with me. And it was heavy. And I remember I already spoke about this experience. I flew with KLM, which I loved, and then I had a not so good experience with Malaysia Airlines. I had a lot of hours in Kuala Lumpur airport, which I also have mentioned was not the easiest airport to travel. And I was just carrying that. I ended up going to the gate. I did not explore the airport further because I was so tired of carrying that bag. So I said no more. And then on my trips, on the next trips that I made, um, I never traveled like that again, and I only carried a little bag with my things, and that's it. A jacket, that's it. No more heavy weights, no more stuff to carry, because seriously, is not just is not doable. And then even the checked in luggage, the fact that then you have to be waiting for the luggage and just take a huge bag, a very heavy bag, when it just rolls and you have to push it through and all that. It really is not one of the most pleasant experiences, I must say. So I think in the end it works up. It works for everyone. I think the traveler of today, it's not a person that is going to carry a lot of stuff. People don't like that anymore. And obviously, that is also profitable and positive for the airlines that may save on fuel, and even, for example, on another perspective, if, for example, they have less passenger allowance, they may profit on, for example, more goods that are paid by the kilo. So it's more important for them and more profitable. So it's all an exercise of money and optimizing their profits. But tell me your experiences, tell me your stories, tell me your opinion. What do you think? Why do airlines lower their luggage allowance limits? What do you think? Do you agree with me? I'm waiting for your answer. And of course, put a like on the video and subscribe the channel so you get a notification of a new gadget report every week. Before I go, I would like to thank you all for watching. See you next week. Have a good one. Bye.